Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of the Tony Mo Show. We're here today mixing things up a little bit, starting to introduce some new segments into the show. I am just stoked to be back. It was a great time this past weekend. My good friend, other Tony as I referred to him, my friends Tony and Allie, tied the knot, became an official wedded couple. It was a fantastic and beautiful weekend. I danced way too much, and I don't normally dance, but when your best friends get married, you gotta dance, right? You gotta dance. And so I danced. And you know what? I had a really great time, although my legs are totally feeling it. But it's October. It's October. It's October. And October means a lot. It means fall is here. It means Halloween is on its way. Michelle and I did some decorating this past week, just Sunday actually. Spent a bunch of time decorating the downstairs, and now we're like, we should probably get more decorations, decorate more stuff. We're gonna be doing our Halloween party. It's been kind of the fun thing about owning a home is like just being able to invite our friends and family over for get-togethers, and I don't know, that stuff's really special to me, so really looking forward to that. But apart from it being fantastic fall weather and the leaves are falling and we can drink hot cocoa and wear hoodies, it's also going to be an insane month for video games. So I wanted to talk a little bit to kick off the show about some of the upcoming releases I'm really looking forward to, and of course I ask you guys to share your upcoming releases, some of the games you're really looking forward to playing down in the comments section below. Obviously, we've got Red Dead Redemption 2, but that's actually going to be the meat of the show, so we'll leave that for a little bit later. Tomorrow, however, Forza Horizon 4 is going to be hitting Games Pass. It's going to be having its official release, so you can either play it by buying it in full, or you can sub to Games Pass, which I think is like $10 a month unless you get a trial. And you get instant access to the game, both on Windows 10 PCs and on the Xbox One or the Xbox One X, and I just can't wait to sit down and play that game with some friends. It just looks bonkers. They're going to be starting off with the summer season, then it's going to move into fall next week, then winter the week after that, and then back to spring, and then back to summer again. So just can't wait, man. I just can't wait to love a good Forza Horizon experience, and this one looks incredible. Soul Calibur is also coming out, which we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. Those are honestly the big ones for me. Assassin's Creed as well, Odyssey, which I'm kind of... Here's the thing about Assassin's Creed. I loved Origins, but I also hated Origins. I think modern open world games suffer from just having way too much nonsense going on. A lot of filler, a lot of side quests, and having played God of War and now Spider-Man, I'm so much more ready for a more curated open world experience. And that's something that the consumer has driven, actually. So I'm not even going to sit here and blame devs or publishers for giving people what sells, because Assassin's Creed and massive open world games like it, Far Cry, sell every single year because people like bang for their buck. In fact, I think most people like bang for their buck more than they like quality for their buck. They'd rather have these really large worlds with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of content than have 30 or 60 hours in a more curated world that is more high quality. That was the best thing about God of War and Spider-Man, was that everything they did on the extra drove the rest of the core experience forward. It gave you more story. You know, listening to Atreus actually read out the lore bits was wonderful. Just nothing ever felt like wasted space. It never felt like it was there for the sake of being there. And I think more open world games need to take that approach. So while I'm excited for Odyssey, because I'm hearing good things about it, I'm also not looking forward to having to trudge through 6 hours of side quest content just to progress the main story. Nonetheless, it is a game that I will be playing and bringing you guys my personal review of when it releases, was it this week actually, so not that far away. Let's move on though, and let's move on to a segment. Still trying to put the show together here, so bear with me, people. Let's move on to a segment called What I've Been Playing. This is what I've been playing the past 7 days, what I managed to squeeze in before and after the wedding this Sunday, actually. Just a few small things, actually. Pathfinder Kingmaker, which is the first thing on this list, is not a small thing at all. It is a really large CRPG doing a lot of wonderful things. And I did want to talk a little bit about it. I know it's not the most popular genre out there right now, but the thing I love about most CRPGs is that they take pen and paper and put them in their rawest possible video game form. So what we get is that more classic, really player choice driven RPG experience that we saw with games like Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, Fallout New Vegas, that we don't really get with modern games anymore. I mean, you look at Fallout 4 and you look at, Skyrim, and just a lot of the player choice has been stripped back. You still have player choice, you still have consequence, but it's just not on the same scale that those games were. We're essentially sacrificing the fidelity of the world, the detail, and again, the size, the length of the world. This gives all these side quests for real player choice, when I would love a compromise like Fallout New Vegas had. So Pathfinder is one of those games that just has insane player choice. And while I think a lot of the CRPGs I've played over the past few years, as they've been kind of getting popular again, Pillars of Eternity I loved, they don't all click with me though. I think CRPGs are kind of like a chai latte. You can get a really crappy chai latte from a place like Tim Hortons where they just take like a chai tea bag and add milk to it, and you're like, what is this thing? This is not a chai latte. You know? Then you can get a really good chai latte that's made the way it's supposed to be made, but maybe it's not the best in terms of how it's crafted. Then you get Pathfinder Kingmaker, which is honestly top tier chai latte, because the first hour of that game alone sets you up for the experience you're going to get throughout the rest of that, which is just, again, really player choice driven. And it quickly pays off on the choices you make as an individual by allowing a group of individuals in the game, NPCs, to essentially align themselves with you or choose not to align themselves with you based on decisions you've made. So you quickly feel the consequence of the decisions you've made. If people get to judge you, they question your morals and your loyalty, and that's the kind of thing I want in a game like that. It feels so good. The game also has an incredible art style that feels like a bunch of friends got together and printed some stuff off of random websites for their D&D session. It's not jumbled and messy like that usually ends up being, but imagine one person curated that stuff for your D&D session. It just feels hand-picked, hand-drawn, nice, colorful, bright artwork. It's just a beautiful game. I'm really, really enjoying it. I've had a few crashes here and there that have been frustrating, but other than that, it has been an incredible experience. And if you're really into CRPGs, I can't recommend it enough. The next thing I got to play just in the nick of time was the Soul Calibur 6 network test. That was live through the weekend, closed like Sunday at 11 p.m. EST. I played about 2 hours of it, messed around with Geralt and Nightmare. I haven't played a Soul Calibur game since like Xbox 360 era Soul Calibur, the one where like Yoda was on Xbox 360 and Darth Vader was on PlayStation 3 or something like that. I was talking with my good buddy Jack about this a couple of days ago. So I'm not like the perfect specimen, I guess, for, oh, is this the Soul Calibur game that I've always wanted? I don't know, because I'm not really a diehard Soul Calibur fan, and I'm not an insane, like, fighting game individual either. I play fighting games, I enjoy them, but I kind of play them in my own little private space. Nonetheless, I wanted to give it a go and see how it played. More importantly, I wanted to see how it felt. You know, I think Injustice 2, for example, is a fighting game that feels so good. It doesn't really matter if you suck at it, you can just have fun with it because it feels good. This game felt pretty good. It did feel dated though to me. It just felt like it hasn't come that far since the Soul Calibur I played back on 360. And I don't really know what to say about that. I guess it hasn't been that long in terms of the generation. I just expected more oomph out of like the presentation. And I know it's just a network test, but the game releases this month, so we can't even say that. It's out like the 19th or something. And I don't know, man, it just felt old. You know, I guess I kind of wanted like a new presentation, a new layer of presentation if you're going to release a fighter in the modern era, especially when you see what, you know, NetherRealm is doing with a game like Injustice 2, where the story is like almost as good, if not better than anything, it is better actually, than anything DC has ever done with any of their films. You kind of just want a little bit more kick out of your fighting game, but I also understand that most people just want it to play good online. So hopefully that's something that works out. I didn't have enough time with it to be able to say like, oh, the netcode. I just know it felt good to play. Geralt was a really fun fighter. Like, I really enjoyed playing with him. Nightmare was cool. Nightmare was one of my favorite characters back in the day. So I guess I'm just curious to see what the Soul Calibur folk think and whether or not this can squeeze its way in to like a more permanent long-term spot in the FGC. We'll have to see. I think it is going to be at one of the tournaments this year. I think my buddy Jack was telling me that. So we'll see how it pans out. But if you played it and you're a longtime Soul Calibur person, longtime FGC member, I'd love to hear what you think of it. Please feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'd also love to hear what you guys have been playing over the past week. So feel free to share any new games you checked out, old games you returned to, down in the comment section below. It's now time to visit a new segment for the show. This is actually a mini series I ran one episode of, and I've been trying to find a way to bring it back, and I was like, it makes perfect sense here in the Tony Mo Show. So, I'd like you all to join me for a hit of nostalgia. For today's hit of nostalgia, we find ourselves at the bookshelf. It's not a very large bookshelf. There's not really that many items on it, but the items that are here are essential nostalgia, if you will. I mean, there's some classics here, some heavy hitters, like this Star Wars trilogy in VHS, which was apparently holding up a whole stack of Rambo DVDs that also just fell over. This is the original untouched trilogy before George Lucas decided to go back and add things to his original creation. That's not what we're here today for, though. We are here today for something video game related. So let's take a look at the second shelf and find ourselves a little old gem. A game called Chrome Hounds. Now, I've actually talked about this game before on Twitter with some people, and Frothy Omen also played Chrome Hounds way back in the day. In fact, I'm convinced that him and I probably either played with or against each other at some point without even realizing it, because there weren't really that many people who played this game online. It had a short-lived online existence. You can still play it single player today. It's good, but it's definitely dated. However, the tactics, the heart of what made Chrome Hound so special is very much there. But I would say that this was one of those games, at least for me, for the first time, where I felt like the single player is good, but when you take that same experience online, it becomes something really special. This is a very hardcore mech experience. It is very focused on tactics that come from the player and not from any in-game indicators. It's also made by Sega, and guess who else? What does that say right there? Does that say From Networks, From Software? That's right, From Software helped develop Chrome Hounds. It is a very From Software take on mechs, let me tell you that. I think the biggest thing about this game was firing at targets at range. So everything in Chrome Hounds is done using the game's grid system and actual bullet trajectories for different bullets, missiles, cartridges, shells, whatever you might be firing out of your different mech, depending on how that mech is outfitted in the class that that mech fits in. If you were running something like the Heavy Gunner, which was this really slow, tanky, sort of claw-built mech, it was all designed basically to support the weight of its massive artillery system, you would actually use this grid system to calculate the range so you could make first fire hits, like cold shots, on targets at great ranges. Targets you couldn't even see. Targets that couldn't see you. When you did that online, it was an experience unlike anything else. It was like actually sitting behind, the targeting display of a giant artillery gun on a battleship off the coast somewhere, firing at enemy targets inland. I mean, it was really that cool. That was the Chrome Hounds online experience. And if you played something like the Scout, you'd have like a fast wheel-built mech. You'd have a mech with treads, first and medium, like heavy, sort of tanky stuff. There was just so much diversity to the mechs themselves, the ways you could build them out custom-wise. Mech games, man. Why are they not big? Why don't people like rolling around in giant fucking mechs and blowing shit up? It just doesn't sell anymore. I mean, Titanfall 2, I think, is a good indication of that. It's like an amazing experience that takes mechs and just makes them blend so well with the first-person shooter. When I think of mechs in the mainstream, I mean, no game does it better, yet it just doesn't seem to appeal to the masses. Some days I think to myself, is there even anything they can do apart from stripping their game bare to make it really appeal to the masses? Like, what is it going to take for mechs to even just find a nice little small space in the gaming community somewhere, sort of like From's been able to do with Dark Souls, for example, the Souls franchise, They've managed to harness this relatively large group of individuals who appreciate what that experience does. And maybe that's just it. Maybe we just need that game that kind of shows people that mechs can be really fun. Maybe it's just the way they've been delivered, where the experience itself isn't just sort of punchy enough. I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot of things. And I will tell you this. There are a lot of games on this shelf from the Xbox 360 era that are near and dear to me because they come from an era, same thing with like the end of the original Xbox's life cycle, where middleware was still a thing. You still had devs, sort of double A, if you will, which we see a little bit of that these days, producing games that weren't incredibly expensive, that didn't need to have insanely high profit margins, and that worked, and that's kind of gone now. There's like 1,000 things we could point fingers at. We could say that CEOs and people at the top are making way too much money, which I will always agree that they are. Let that shit trickle down, man, so you can make more exciting games. You could also, though, agree that games are too cheap, that they need to cost more, so devs can take risks on more unique concepts and ideas and be able to make out in the end, or at least break even and not have their studio shut down just because they tried to do something unique and exciting. I mean, this is why we don't see a game like Chromehounds 2, because it doesn't fit the safe bill for what a publisher wants to work with right now. I mean, think about it. If someone pitched Chromehounds 2, it doesn't matter how amazing it sounds, no one's gonna pay for that to happen, because the chances of it being successful, or more importantly, the chances of it turning enough of a profit based on how much they're probably gonna have to sell it for, is just slim to none. So there's just so many issues with the current state of the industry when it comes to those kinds of experiences, unique experiences, that I just think it's going to be a long time before we get back to a point where we can see games like that built on a AAA or a AA scale. It kind of makes me sad, but nostalgia is supposed to be about making us happy. But the reality is, when you look back at some things and you realize they can't really make something like that anymore, it gets kind of sad. So I guess let's try and end it on a positive note. If you played Chromehounds, let me know. I'd love to hear your classic Chromehound story, and I guess if there's any other mech games from the past that you'd like to talk about, whether it was like old Mech Warrior or something like that, feel free to create a little bit of a discussion on that down in the comment section below. Why don't we go ahead and teleport ourselves 4 feet that away back into the chair and continue the show. Alright, let's continue with the show, because it's time for the hype, as I am calling it. And today's hype is 100% focused around Red Dead Redemption 2, which, by the way, just got its second gameplay trailer released today. Showcases in greater detail the things we'll be able to do in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2, which was already like sounding incredible. I was already completely sold on this vision that Rockstar and the 8 teams that are working on this game were delivering, but it just kind of just keeps selling me more. You know, it's like I've pretty much already paid for it. Like, I'm gonna buy it day one at this point, but you're almost like selling it to me again. Like, I almost feel like I gotta buy a second copy for someone, because it just seems that ridiculous. So where do we start? I mean, I'm showing you guys right now the gameplay from the second trailer, and like the fluidity of the animations, like all that stuff obviously looks bonkers, but it's more about what you can do, right? The freedoms you have. We just talked a little bit about player choice, why that's so important in CRPGs, why I wish it was more a part of modern RPGs. And here we have a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 that's really delivering player choice on a new front, and that genuinely excites me. Obviously I'm looking forward to the story portion of the game, but it just seems like there's going to be so much we can do just kind of our own free will. I very much like the sense I'm getting here that this isn't going to be a game that feels like it's split into its 2 different states. Like, here's the time you spend in your campaign with your storytelling, and here's everything else, but rather smush them together, and it's all just one beautiful peanut butter and apricot jam sandwich. I'm really into apricot jam lately. You should try it. It's amazing, by the way. I love strawberry jam, homemade strawberry jam. My mom and I used to make it as a kid. My grandma, my brother. It's good stuff, but apricot, it's on another level. So that's what Red Dead is to me right now. It's a peanut butter and apricot jam sandwich with some really nice fresh white bread. It's just all brought together, you know, it's been congealed, and when you bite into it, you taste it all, you experience it all, rather than just experiencing like these separate entities, you know. Hopefully it doesn't seem like it's gonna feel like, okay, I did my story mission, now I'm just kind of, alright, I'm Arthur again. Let's go fishing, guys, because this is the boring side of my life. I just got done robbing a bank, now I'm just gonna sit here and fish. Whoosh. My name's Arthur, Red Dead Redemption 2. You know, like, that's kind of how Grand Theft Auto 5 felt. Like, you would do your thing and then you'd just be thrown into the side world, and it's like, I'm just a overweight, sexist white guy who treats his wife and daughter like shit, you know, or I'm a raging maniac who is now wearing a dress. Like, Rockstar made it work, but it just didn't feel cohesive. And Red Dead, the way they talk about it, it's just like you're always just doing your thing, always just living out your life. And I think that ties into the extreme depth that they're looking to introduce with the gameplay mechanics. So a great example, a set of great examples that I've read at this point from previews revolve around buying stuff in stores and hunting. So when you go hunting, you maybe stalk in a deer, you take that deer out with your bow or with your rifle, you then go up and you actually skin it. So Arthur actually skins the deer appropriately. He cuts down the middle, he peels the fur back off the thing. I don't know if we're going to see the gutting animation, getting the stomach and all the guts out, not cutting those and contaminating the meat. And then he rolls up the pelt, puts it on his horse, and then you actually take the carcass over your shoulder, walk it to your horse, and then put it on your horse. And you can't just stack up 50 deer carcasses. This isn't Red Dead Redemption 1 where you just literally shoot 50 million eagles out of the sky and then somehow sell all 50 million eagles for like $100. There's going to be more tangible values given to these items. So going out and hunting feels more rewarding, feels more like, yeah, I hunted a deer. That's probably the biggest issue I have with hunting in games, is that you got to kill like 20 deer for it to feel like anything happened. It's like, it's gamey. It's really gamey, and I'm happy to see a developer saying, let's not do that anymore. Let's make this a substantial thing. Let's give hunting, the same value it has in real life. So you can then take that carcass to the butcher, have him butcher it. You could sell it to him. You could sell the pelt. You could use the pelt for crafting potentially. The same goes for fishing. Food is important in this game now. You're going to have to eat to sustain yourself and to survive. You're going to have to stay warm, shave your beard, keep clean, get yourself, unmuddy, get your horse unmuddy. The details just seem bonkers. Speaking of removing gamification, gamey elements, when you go into a storefront, you're not going to see like a bunch of menus where it's like cheese, 30 cents or whatever, You're just going to see that item on the shelf, and then you're going to be able to interact with it. And maybe the shopkeeper will tell you how much it costs, or there's a real in-game tag that tells you how much it costs. And for items that don't fit in the shop, you don't just go to a magical menu in the sky and scroll through the items in a UI. No, you actually look at a catalog on the counter that has real advertisements in it that are period accurate, period correct, if you will. And you see Arthur's grubby hands flipping through the pages like, maybe I should order a new hat today. This one's kind of dirty and I got a bullet hole in it. That's so cool. I love stuff like that. That's when I talk about, don't give me 300 hours of repetitive side quests. Let me spend 2.5 hours hunting one deer, selling its pieces, cooking the meat after I get it butchered by someone, eating to sustain myself, and strolling into town with my newfound cash from the pelt I sold to buy myself a nice new hat. That's 2 hours worth of content that has more meaning in it than the 7 hours of 10 different side quests that were relatively the same shit, just done again and again for the sake of padding. Like, woo! Talk about details are everything here. I can't be more excited for this game. And I'd love to hear what you think of the information we've gotten so far, or if you're keeping yourself in the shadows. I'm also currently running a poll from yesterday over on my YouTube community tab, which you should totally check out, because I want to know how many of you guys are actually picking up that game. So if you like participating in that poll, you can do so over there. I'll have a direct link to that page down in the pinned comment below. Red Dead 2. It is the hype for this episode's this episode of the Tony Mo Show. I completely lost it there. I want to tie in the food for thought this week to what we just talked about with Red Dead, though. So how much do these detailed mechanical systems and the removal of more gamified, gamey systems matter to you in your experience with a game like Red Dead? So like what we just talked about, how much does all that stuff matter to you? How important is it for a game to start to strip away menus and UI and give you a more intuitive, real experience? How important is it for you to see your character actually skin that deer the way you would skin a deer in real life, and then actually have to carry that deer as a real physical item? Like, how much does that stuff matter to you? Is that to you the progression for games like Red Dead Redemption 2? Because for me, it totally is. Like, when I think about where can games go next outside of the grander scale of things and how important I think VR is going to be in the next, 5-10 years, if not maybe a little bit more than that, I think details like that matter. I think removing the HUD, building experiences that allow us to just do things based on the way we do things in the real world. So going into a shop and, like I would in the real world, just saying, I could buy that cheese because it's on the counter. Pushing for that level of detail and realism and that removal of gamification, to me, is the next step forward to creating extremely immersive and extremely enjoyable experiences where developers don't have to chase some crazy, grand, exotic idea. You blow up 1 million cars and fly 3,000 miles an hour, but they can give us more traditional experiences like fishing and hunting and deliver them in a way that they simply haven't been delivered in before. That's my feeling. That's my vibe. I'd love to hear how you guys feel about that down in the comment section below. I'd also like to thank you all for watching the show. The first episode did way better than I ever thought it was going to do. We're going to continue to expand it and improve it. I'm looking at new tech, better lighting, new ways of doing different shots like we did with Hidden Nostalgia today, jumping around my office space, if you will, maybe doing some other unique editing things. I'm learning. Hopefully you're enjoying the process of the show while I'm learning and changing things. And I'm going to be honest, at this point, my voice is done. So I'm going to take a day break. I'll see you guys Thursday for the final episode of our mini-series, What We Know. That's the Anthem mini-series where we're going to take a look at the Ranger. And yeah, man, I got some spooky stuff planned. We're going to be doing like a Halloween special for the Tony Mo Show around closer to Halloween. And I'm excited. I'm like getting back into the swing of things, and hopefully you guys have been having a good time. We'll also see how this whole lapel mic thing works out. The audio quality seems okay, but I think I'm going to step things up to a lapel that goes directly into my mix amp rather than to the PC, so we can really get that audio quality as good as it would be with my mic up there, and not have to like accidentally punch it and stuff, and be able to be a little bit more free in moving around and speaking. So that's going to do it for today's episode of The Mo Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to support the show directly, of course you can do that through Patreon, which is linked down in the pinned comment as well as the description. And I will see you in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose. The most important task of your